3:14 hours, December 17th, 1944, the eastern tree line outside Krinkelth, Belgium. Oberstfreiter Karl-Heinz Weber, 27 years old, 3. Company, Grenadier Regiment 989, 277. Volksgrenadier Division, 18 months of continuous service since the retreat from Normandy, is moving at a jog through frozen undergrowth with his rifle already uncapped and his helmet strap loosened because the night has gone quiet in a way it should not. The patrol numbers 9. 1 Unteroffizier in front, Weber third in line, spacing measured by arm length because the forest is dense and doctrine says close order prevents infiltration. They have been told the Americans here are disorganized. Motorized infantry rushed into the line without winter equipment, inexperienced, reliant on noise and illumination. The radio briefing before departure stated that enemy listening posts were unlikely because American units depended on shouted commands and vehicle engines. Silence, according to the briefing, belonged to Germans. Weber's breath is loud inside his scarf. Frost catches in the stubble on his chin. Somewhere to the west, artillery moves, not firing, just repositioning, the dull iron sound of weight dragged across frozen ground. The Unteroffizier lifts a fist. The line halts. Weber stops with his left boot half raised and holds it there, calf burning. Nothing moves ahead. No sound of coughing, no metallic clink, no cigarette flare. The forest remains unchanged. That, too, is doctrine. If the enemy is present, he will reveal himself. At 3:16, the first American round strikes Unteroffizier Franz Kappel between the shoulder blades. The sound is not a crack. It is a short, flat impact, swallowed by snow. Kappel falls forward without a shout. His MP-40 skids, stops against a root. Weber does not yet understand what has happened because no report follows the impact. The absence of sound registers before the wound. At 3:16 and some seconds, a second shot lands. This one entering the throat of the fourth man in line, Gefreiter Lutz. He drops to his knees, hands clutching at his neck, breath escaping in wet pulses that do not carry more than a meter. Weber hears that. He turns, lowering his rifle, searching for muzzle flash that does not appear. The patrol scatters instinctively, breaking formation in violation of orders that no longer matter. Weber dives behind a beech trunk, snow exploding around his boots. Still no report. No echo. No shouted command in English. The enemy remains invisible and silent, which contradicts everything Weber has been taught about American infantry behavior since basic training. At 3:17, Weber hears a German rifle discharge from the far left, a panicked shot into darkness. Immediately after, another American round enters the man who fired, punching through his helmet from above at a downward angle that tells Weber the shooter is elevated. The man collapses backward, eyes open, steam rising from his mouth. Weber presses his face into bark and waits for the return fire that never comes. The silence is mechanical. It repeats. One movement detected, one body falls. No wasted shots. No suppression. No shouted coordination. The Americans were supposed to be loud. They were supposed to call targets, to fire in bursts, to throw flares. None of that happens. At 3:18, Weber notices something that does not belong. A faint disturbance in the snow 20 meters ahead, not a footprint, but a compressed path where weight has been distributed deliberately. Whoever is firing is not shifting position between shots. The angle remains constant. The timing between rounds does not change. It is measured. Weber counts. 8 seconds. 8 seconds again. The Unteroffizier is dead. Command collapses downward instantly. Doctrine says the next senior man should take over. No one does. The forest absorbs them individually. At 3:19, Weber crawls backward, inch by inch, rifle clutched to his chest, trying to create distance without sound. His sleeve brushes a twig. It snaps. Immediately, a round strikes the ground where his head had been 1 second earlier. Snow fills his mouth. He freezes. The shooter has adjusted without hearing the twig. That realization arrives fully formed. Weber does not argue with it. He only notes that the correction was visual. The Americans had been described as dependent on radios and shouted orders. This shooter is using neither. Weber realizes then that no verbal command has preceded any shot. There is no exchange, no whispered coordination. There is only one firing position and one rhythm. At 3:21, Gefreiter Paul Mertens breaks and runs. His boots crunch. He manages 4 steps. The round enters below his left shoulder blade and exits through his sternum. He falls face first, arms extended, fingers clawing snow. Weber watches the blood spread, dark and fast, steaming. Weber's hands shake. He cannot stop them. He presses his cheek against the frozen ground until it hurts enough to anchor him. The forest smells like sap and cold metal. He can taste oil. At 3:23, Weber hears something else now. Breathing. Not German. Too controlled. Too slow. It comes from above, not ahead. He tilts his eyes upward without moving his head. In the branches, 15 meters up, there is a shape that resolves into a human outline only when Weber allows himself to see it. White fabric. A hood. No insignia visible. The rifle is braced against the trunk, not held. The man does not move his head between shots. His mouth is closed. Weber waits for the man to speak. He does not. Weber waits for a whispered count, a signal, a radio click. Nothing arrives. The shooter fires again, eliminating another prone German whose only mistake was shifting weight. At 3:25, Weber understands that the man in the tree is not listening. The realization does not come with explanation. It comes because nothing Weber does produces a reaction except visible motion. Sound has no effect. The shooter's world is visual, narrowed, efficient. Weber's training does not apply. Later, in captivity, Weber will write in his interrogation statement, reagiert nicht auf Geräusch, nur auf Bewegung. He will underline it once. At this moment, he only presses his face deeper into snow and stops breathing when the shooter pauses, not to listen, but to reload. At 3:27, the rifle's bolt cycles. Weber counts the motion. He counts because counting is something he can still do. The magazine change takes 5 seconds. The next round chambers. The rhythm resumes. By 3:30, 6 Germans are dead. 2 are wounded and unmoving. 1 remains. Weber. The forest has not changed. The snow is unbroken except where bodies lie. The American remains in position, patient, unchanged, as if time itself is not pressing him. Weber realizes then that this is not an encounter. It is a process. It has been designed to function without communication, without sound, without adjustment. It can repeat anywhere there are trees and men who move. He does not stand. He does not run. He lies still and waits for daylight, understanding that waiting is not a tactic but a hope, and that hope has not been part of the American system so far. 4:02 hours, December 17th, 1944, the same forest east of Crinkled, the temperature unchanged, the snow now marked by bodies that have cooled enough to stop steaming. Weber remains pressed into the ground where he last froze, eyes open, jaw locked to keep his teeth from clicking. Dawn is still more than 3 hours away. The American in the tree has not moved. The rifle remains braced. The position is held with the patience of something designed to wait. At 4:05, Weber notices a shift that does not involve sound. A shadow lengthens beneath the tree. The American adjusts his footing, not because he heard anything, but because the angle of view must remain correct as the earth turns. The adjustment is minimal. It preserves coverage of the patrol's approach route. The dead Germans are not checked. They are not looted. They are obstacles now, shapes that will draw attention if someone else comes. At 4:11, another German patrol appears at the edge of the trees, 6 men, moving faster than doctrine allows because confidence has been reinforced all night by the absence of contact. Weber recognizes their shoulder flashes. Same regiment. He wants to shout. He cannot. His mouth is full of snow and blood where he bit his tongue earlier. He does not move. The first man of the second patrol steps into the kill zone at 4:12. The American fires once. The man drops. The patrol reacts faster than Weber's did. They scatter immediately, having learned something without knowing how. It does not matter. The spacing only delays the outcome. The rifle continues its rhythm. 8 seconds. 8 seconds. The American does not shift position. He does not descend. The tree holds. The sling takes weight. The weapon cycles without hesitation. The cold does not interfere. The bolt does not stick. Weber notes this because German rifles in this cold have begun to fail unless kept warm against the body. The American rifle does not require that. At 4:19, Weber hears the first American voice of the night. It is not directed at the Germans. It is quiet, close, and not amplified by urgency. A single word. Then another voice answers from the forest floor, 30 meters away. The exchange lasts less than 3 seconds. The second voice belongs to someone Weber did not know was there. A second American. Ground support. Weber had assumed one shooter. That assumption collapses without drama. The second American does not fire. He watches. He moves when the shooter reloads, adjusting positions of fallen Germans slightly, turning one body to close a gap in the visual field. He uses the dead as terrain. He does not speak again. By 4:27, the second patrol is finished. Weber has counted 11 rounds fired in total since 3:16. 11 rounds. 11 Germans neutralized. No return fire has come close. The forest has returned to stillness. The Americans remain. At 4:41, Weber's muscles begin to cramp. He cannot shift without being seen. The American has demonstrated that motion is sufficient cause. Sound is irrelevant. Weber focuses on controlling his eyes, which water from cold and strain. He blinks slowly, counting between blinks, aligning them with the shooter's reloads. He survives by learning the system as it operates. At 5:03, faint light begins to separate tree from sky. The American adjusts again, this time descending 3 meters to maintain concealment as contrast increases. The movement is practiced. It takes 12 seconds. No branch snaps. Weber watches the technique without admiration. Admiration would require distance. This is proximity. At 5:18, Weber hears engines. American engines. Multiple. Not idling. Advancing. The sound comes from the west. Steady. Layered. Not massed. Trucks. Half-tracks. Numbers beyond one patrol. The American in the tree does not react to the sound. He does not need to. The engines are not a threat to his position. They are confirmation. At 5:26, Weber understands something else. The ambush was not meant to clear the forest. It was meant to hold it. Delay. Channel. Kill selectively. The Americans are not probing. They are fixing the German line in place while something larger moves. At 5:34, the second American signals again. A hand raised. 2 fingers. The shooter nods once. He fires one last round, eliminating a wounded German who had begun to crawl. Then he safeties the rifle. The firing stops permanently. At 5:41, Weber hears footsteps approaching openly. No attempt at concealment now. The Americans move with daylight confidence. One of them speaks louder, addressing no one. Another laughs quietly at something Weber cannot see. They are not searching. They are collecting. A boot appears in Weber's field of view. Brown leather. Clean. The American looks down at him without surprise. He gestures with the barrel of his rifle. Weber raises his hand slowly. No shot comes. The American's eyes move over him, cataloging. Deafness is not yet known to Weber as a concept applied to this man. He only knows that sound has never mattered. Later, in a temporary holding area, Weber will overhear an American sergeant speaking to an officer. The sergeant will say, "He doesn't hear a damn thing. Never has." The officer will nod and write something down. Weber will not know their names. He will know the result. By 6:10, Weber is marched west past vehicles parked in rows that extend beyond his line of sight. Trucks with engines still warm. Crates stacked 3 high. Ammunition boxes stenciled with dates from the previous month. The scale contradicts everything he has been told about American logistical fragility. There is no sign of scarcity. No improvisation. Everything is numbered. At 6:24, Weber is seated on an ammunition crate and given coffee. It is hot. He burns his tongue. The American who hands it to him does not look at him. The act is procedural. Weber notices that the man's gloves are dry. At 6:37, artillery begins firing behind them. Not sporadic. Not ranging. Continuous. The sound rolls east, toward German positions that have not yet understood what is happening in the forest. Weber watches American soldiers eat while the guns work. He watches them adjust nothing. In his post-war affidavit, Weber will write, "Es war kein Hinterhalt. Es war ein Ablauf." He will not elaborate. He will not need to. The forest behind him is already being forgotten. Ahead, engines continue to arrive. The Americans are not pausing. They are not impressed by what one man has done. They have accounted for it. They have moved on. 8:12 hours, December 17th, 1944, a temporary American holding area west of Krinkelt, laid out along a farm road widened by tracked vehicles. Oberstfreiter Karl-Heinz Weber sits with his back against a hedge that has been crushed flat by half-tracks. His hands numb where the rope bites into his wrists. The air smells of fuel, hot metal, and bread. The firing has moved farther east. It has not stopped. At 8:19, a German counter-battery salvo lands short of the American line, the shells bursting in a field already churned to mud by tires. The Americans do not scatter. They adjust nothing. One soldier glances at his watch. Another continues chewing. Weber notices that none of them flinch. The artillery is not close enough to matter, and they know exactly how close it would have to be before it did. At 8:27, an American officer walks the line of prisoners. He does not raise his voice. He stops once, looks at Weber's boots, notes the wear pattern, then moves on. He is counting something internally. Weber understands this because he recognizes the habit. German officers count, too, but they count losses. This man is counting capacity. At 8:41, a truck arrives carrying wounded Germans from a different sector. They are placed beside Weber. Their injuries are varied, not clustered. Shrapnel wounds, burns, concussive trauma. Weber listens to them speak. They describe attacks that did not pause, positions that were suppressed, and then overrun by men who appeared already supplied for the next phase. No one mentions the forest ambush. It is already irrelevant. At 9:03, Weber sees the deaf American again. The man is on the ground now, helmet off, hands blackened with oil as he cleans his rifle. The weapon is disassembled on a crate. Parts are laid out in a precise order. The man's movements are economical. He does not look up when a shell detonates somewhere beyond the ridge. He does not look up when a truck backfires. Weber watches his mouth. It remains relaxed. The man hums silently, a vibration Weber can see but not hear. Another American approaches, taps the deaf man on the shoulder, points east. The man nods. The rifle is reassembled in under a minute. It returns to function without adjustment. Weber notices that the bolt face is clean. The extractor shows no wear. This rifle has not been stressed by the night's work. It is ready to repeat the process. At 9:26, German prisoners are marched farther west. The column passes rows of vehicles that do not end. Fuel bozers, ambulances, mobile kitchens. Weber counts without meaning to. He loses count. The numbers exceed any defensive estimate provided before the offensive began. The scale is wrong. The math no longer balances. At 9:48, an American loudspeaker announces instructions in German. The accent is poor but understandable. The message is brief. It does not threaten. It informs. Weber notices that the announcement is made once. There is no repetition. The Americans assume compliance as a default state. At 10:02, artillery resumes closer now, walking fire along a tree line that Weber recognizes as the boundary of the forest where the ambush occurred. The shells arrive in sequence, spaced precisely. Trees splinter. The terrain that enabled the night's work is erased in minutes. Weber realizes the ambush was never meant to be revisited. It was a disposable component, consumed as soon as it achieved delay. At 10:31, Weber overhears an American captain speaking to a journalist. The captain says, "We held them long enough." Nothing else. No names. No embellishment. The journalist writes quickly, already looking for the next angle. At 11:04, Weber is loaded onto a truck with other prisoners. As it moves, he looks back once. The deaf soldier is already gone, moving east again, absorbed into a system that does not record individual effort in the moment it occurs. Weber understands then that the man's deafness was not an obstacle overcome. It was simply irrelevant to a method that did not require hearing. In a POW camp months later, Weber will hear that the offensive failed not because of weather or betrayal or insufficient courage, but because the Americans absorbed loss at a rate Germans could not match and replaced it faster than Germans could calculate. Weber will think of the forest, of 8-second intervals, of a rifle that did not care about noise. He will not argue. At 11:47, the truck accelerates. The road widens. The horizon fills with smoke that does not thin. Weber sits among men who no longer discuss counterattacks. They discuss food. Time has moved forward without waiting for their understanding. What happened in the forest is already happening elsewhere, multiplied by terrain, by daylight, by numbers. Weber feels this not as fear, but as certainty, settling into place like frost that will not melt.